Hey, what's up, y'all? It's Steve again, Harmless Rebel. A little different video this time. I haven't done a what's spinning in a while. This one's kind of actually a mix because a few of these are newer purchases. But for the most part, this is stuff I already had in the collection. So pretty much going to be all punk. I think there's one ska record in here. Everything else is pretty much punk. So starting off, kind of what led me down this rabbit hole and got me in the mood for punk, which is pretty much all I've been listening to for the last week and a half, is this one. It's a pretty cool bootleg. I didn't know that this existed. Apparently, it's been around on CD for quite some time. But this is Black Flag, and it's Damaged with Dez. From what I understand, most of the tracks on here have been released. I really like the Keith and the Dez eras of Black Flag. A lot of people prefer Henry Rollins. I like them all equally. But when it comes to this album, I do prefer the Henry Rollins. And it may just be because I'm so used to hearing it. Plus, these feel like rough cuts. So I don't know if this was a rough... I doubt they were doing rough mixes this early in their career. I don't think they had the money in the studio to do a rough mix and then re-record it, you know. What I'm thinking is this is what they recorded with Dez, and then when they replaced him, I don't know if he quit the band or if he was let go, but then when Henry Rollins took over, they re-recorded. It's what I'm thinking, but still very cool. A lot of fun, a really good listen. Not something I'll pull out a lot, but still something kind of cool to have from just one of the seminal punk bands, Black Flag. A few seminal punk bands. This is also a new pickup. I just picked this one up a few days ago. They did a really killer job with this. This is the second album from Circle Jerks, Wild in the Streets. Speaking of Keith. Just a fantastic album. So this is the 2022 deluxe edition of it. They remastered it from the original master tapes. It was pressed at Pirates Press, which is not one of my favorite pressing plants. There is a couple of really light pops and stuff throughout the record. Not a lot of them, but there's a few. But the mastering is really good. It sounds really good. And they put together a 20-page book that's like superbly done. A lot of the recent books that have been coming out have pictures like this where they just look digitized. And the book is super clean pictures, a really killer write-up. And the cool thing about this, they did like 15 colors. So there's a boatload of them out there. And you get this album. I paid $19.99 for it. So you can get it for under 20 bucks, which is very cool. But just one of the classic punk albums. And next up, another classic. This is like a early 2000s pressing, if I remember correctly. But Legacy of Brutality. I don't know what happened to my copy of this. I had an 80s copy of this, and I have no clue where it went. It was one of those things where I was in the mood to listen to it and went to pull it out, and I couldn't find it anywhere. So I don't know if it got mixed in with stuff I was selling or what happened, but it's just one of those albums that you have to have in your collection. And some of my favorite songs on this one, Where Angels Dare, Static Age. There's not a bad song on here. So a little bit of Misfits. Next up, just one of the classic bands. And an amazing live set. But this is X Live. My local record store had this for, I think I paid like $13 or $14. And it's a white label promo. Sounds fantastic. This one, is it punk? Their first album is definitely punk. They get into some rock and roll, a little bit of rockabilly and stuff throughout the rest of their career. And John Doe is just one of my favorite characters. I'm not going to put up a picture. Google John Doe from X, though, and you'll know who he is. He's probably more famous at this point for the 60 or 70 movies that he's been in than for being one of the members of X. And he really is kind of a Renaissance guy because he's done I want to say they have about a dozen albums, maybe more. They just had an album come out last year or the year before. He's got a good dozen albums that he did himself. He's done stuff with other people, and then he's done 60 or 70 movies. I mean, the guy never stops. But killer live set from, is it the Whiskey? Yeah, the Whiskey. Next up, one of the seminal punk bands. This is a band that a lot of people hate. I've always loved this band. I don't believe in their politics, but I've always loved their writing. I love the militaristic sound of the drums on all of their albums. This is their debut, Stations of the Crass. This is they've been reissuing or repressing the Crass albums, and they all sound fantastic. This one and Penis Envy are definitely my favorites. Chrissy album is pretty good as well. But if you run across this, again, I paid like $21 for this. And that's another thing that Crass has always been good about. They control their music. When they do pressings, they don't jack up the prices like other record labels do. So definitely worth grabbing a copy of. So this I thought was a bootleg when I first saw it, and I didn't buy it. And the next time I went to the store, I grabbed it. This was supposed to be the very first release from Social Distortion. It was supposed to be a 4-song EP, a 7-inch with 2 songs on each side, and I forget what the whole story is. Let's see. Yeah, I'm not gonna read through it again. Promised Nest that we'd not fight. So one time, blah, blah, blah. Pro's a 12-inch. Okay, so it was supposed to be a 12-inch EP. And what ended up happening is the label owner and Mike Ness got into a fight. And he ended up releasing a 7-inch with Playpen and Mainliner, which is a pretty, obviously, it's a very sought-after 7-inch. So this is cool. It's got 2 additional songs as well from the same sessions. But this is 80 or 81, if I remember correctly. Nobody in the band was 18 yet. And you can just see how young Mike Ness is in that picture. But Posh Little Monsters. So it's got Playpen, All the Answers, 1945, Justice for All, Mainliner, and Moral Threat. So very cool to have that. And then speaking of Social Distortion. Sorry, my allergies are really bad lately. Just one of the classic albums, Somewhere Between Heaven and Hell. Some will argue this one's more rockabilly than punk. Very true. Social Distortion is one of those bands that I've liked everything they've released. They're definitely more of a rockabilly band now for sure. I still love this album though. This was not my introduction to Social Distortion. But this was the first album of theirs that I had, that I bought. And I had this one, it was one of the first CDs that I bought, actually. Next up, one of the best albums of all time. I haven't looked at the top 100 albums list in a while, but I would bet that this is on there. Of course, Funhouse from the Stooges. It's a perfect album. The first 2 Stooges albums are just absolutely perfect. Just so many great songs on here. 1970 is one of my favorite Stooges albums. This is the represses. I believe they were all analog represses that were done a couple years ago. And I think they did a box set as well. Fantastic sounding pressing though. Definitely worth grabbing a copy of. Next up, Sam Hain. Sam Hain, I have to be in the mood for. It's funny. The Misfits, I can listen to any time of day. I love the Misfits. I love Danzig, his solo stuff. He's got 2 albums that I'm kind of iffy with. I'm not a huge fan of Black Acid Devil. And Danzig 4, I really like half of the album, and I don't really care about the other half. The Sam Hain albums, I've always liked them. Like I said, though, I just have to be in the mood for them. Now, some people say that they're not punk, they're hard rock, and they are kind of a mix of the two. But so I pulled this one out though. Anidium. I don't even know if that's the right way to pronounce it. Next up, the best-selling, what did what do they call it? A small label. The best-selling, it's not small label. Why am I drawing a blank? Whatever. The best-selling small label pressing of all time. Offspring Smash. They were on Epitaph when they did this. I believe it sold like 13 million albums worldwide. I don't listen to it much. I loved this when it came out. I played it nonstop. I could go the rest of my life without hearing Self-Esteem or Keep 'Em Separated. Was that this one? Or Come Out and Play? Yeah, Come Out and Play and Self-Esteem. There's so many other killer tracks on here, though. They kind of got overshadowed. Again, I don't pull this out often, maybe every 5 years or so, but it's always a fun listen when I do. Next up, this is actually one of my favorite, I guess you'd call them a modern punk band. They've been around since the 90s, but they're a lot of fun. It's a super group. You've got members of NoFX. You've got members of No Use for a Name. There's a couple other bands as well. They've swapped out members too. Their guitarist, who was, I believe he was in No Use for a Name, has been playing with the Foo Fighters for at least a decade now. But this is Me First and the Gimme Gimmes. What they are is they're a cover band, and every album is a different theme. I've talked about them before. This is them doing punk covers of country songs, and it's fantastic. I highly recommend checking this out. It's so much fun. But you've got Ghost Riders in the Sky, Desperado, On the Road Again. Jolene is fantastic on here. I'm So Lonesome I Could Cry, Eastbound and Down. It's just a fantastic album. I highly recommend checking these guys out. They're a lot of fun, whether you're really heavy into punk or not. And then another one of theirs is Me First and the Gimme Gimmes, Ruined Johnny's Bar Mitzvah. And the funny thing about this is they really were the band at this kid's bar mitzvah. And here's an actual picture from the bar mitzvah of them playing. And you can hear the parents are just not digging it. There's actually a deluxe CD version of this with the kid playing drums on a song, and then the uncle doing a song with the guys too. But it's really cool. But it's a live set from a bar mitzvah, and I mean it's Heart of Glass, Stairway to Heaven. Let's see, Strawberry Fields Forever. Oh man, The Longest Time, Take It on the Run, Superstar. They do Ava Nagila, which is fantastic. Again, really worth checking out. Any of their albums are worth grabbing, and they all have a different theme. So they got the country one. They did one that's called Divas, where it's all like diva songs. All very cool. A couple of NoFX is a little skater punk here, and then we'll get back to a little bit of traditional punk for a bit. NoFX, the greatest songs ever written. I actually picked this up. It's their greatest hits, and it's got all their best songs on it. I loved NoFX through about the war on terrorism. That was in for me, and I'll get to why in a minute. But definitely worth having. They did a great job on this comp. Now this one's a glow-in-the-dark vinyl, and I just grabbed it because I got it for really cheap, and it sells. I mean, they go for like 60, 70 bucks. So I knew I was going to run across another copy. I'd usually pass up on glow-in-the-dark vinyl. It is a little bit noisy in the quiet spots. Luckily, there's not a lot of quiet spots, so it's definitely worth grabbing. If you're not a fan of their albums, just like their hits, it's definitely one worth having. And then next up, just one of their classics. I Heard They Suck Live. Just a killer live set. Again, all of their big hits. This is, I don't remember what year it was. I want to say the live set was like 90. It was like 92 or 93. And then it came out in 95. This is the anniversary edition. Some of these anniversary editions, I've got a couple of them. They've got the chrome on the names. And then the last of the NoFX is The Decline. This is the Decline is one of my favorite songs that they've done. It's a long song. It's like 15 minutes long, and it's actually kind of 3 songs in one, but they do a fantastic job. This is live at the Red Rocks, and they've got Trump throwing a bomb at the nation's capital. So the reason I stopped liking them, and I don't mind that they don't like Trump. I get it. A lot of people don't like Trump. I'm not a huge fan of Trump, but I lost respect for them with the war on terrorism, because that's when they took a turn and basically became Democrats. And it's not because they became Democrats. This is a band that spent their whole early career, songs like "Murder the Government," talking about how bad big government is. And now they're supporting, they support politicians that are big government politicians, and a lot of times socialist politicians, which kind of goes against everything that they've ever talked about in their early albums. And they've definitely gone that direction with their later stuff. And it doesn't interest, but I still love those. I still love those early albums. Next up, just an all-time classic. This was Rogan Music did a pressing of this a few years ago. I think we were on John's Bit Bop Booms live stream, and he played the version of Party Time from 45 Grave from this. So it kind of made me pull it out and give it a couple of spins. But Return of the Living Dead soundtrack. If you haven't heard this, it's fantastic. I mean, you got the Cramps, 45 Grave. The TSOL song on here is one of my favorite tracks on the album. Flesh Eater, Rocky Erickson, Jet Blackberries, Tall Boys, and The Damned. Can't go wrong. And it's a fantastic movie if you haven't seen it. Next up, I mentioned there was a ska in here, and it's the Specials, the best of. I picked this up not too long ago, maybe 3 or 4 months ago. I've always liked the Specials, or the Specials AKA, or whatever name they've gone by. I've never enjoyed their entire albums, though. Every album has 2 or 3 songs I love, and the rest is just kind of filler. So this is definitely a band for me where I wanted to have the greatest hits, because it has all the songs that I love on it. Definitely worth grabbing. Again, this is a recent pressing, 2019, so you can get this for relatively cheap. And again, I just don't think it's worth it to grab all their solo albums. And then just a few left. Next up, this is what, again, John Bit Bop Boom told me I had to get this one. I don't remember how we got on the discussion of it, but this is Dinner and Sherman from Merciful Fate. They were originally in a punk band called the Brats, and this is 1980 Brats. This album is fantastic. It's actually a major label release. It was released on CBS in Europe, and it's fantastic. I'm really glad that I grabbed this. I've played this quite a bit. If they were from England, it would be a new wave of British heavy metal album. It's a little bit punk, a little bit hard rock. Any way you chop it, though, it's fantastic. This is one that everybody should have. I don't dislike Merciful Fate. I think the only Merciful Fate album that you have to have is their first EP, Nuns Have No Fun. The rest of it is I just don't like it as much as their first EP. But that's not what this is, and it's just fantastic. So highly recommend this. This is a high roller pressing, but even originals I saw you can get for a decent price if you want to go that route. High Roller did a great job on that too. And then the last few. Actually, before I show those, this is one I was listening to the Social Distortion, and I was putting it online, and I noticed this. I had never seen this before, but this is a Canadian sampler. And it's called Social Distortion Sampler. And somebody had a copy for a good price, so I went ahead and grabbed it. And I listened to this a couple times today, actually. It's got I Was Wrong, When Angels Sing, Under My Thumb, Bad Luck, and Ring of Fire. But just a really killer promotional sampler. And then last but not least, one of the more important bands that really didn't get their due until much later. Not just as a band, but as a label. From day one, they were releasing stuff on their own label, starting in 1981 with their first single. This is their '88 album. I think they split up after their second album because they took a few years off, and then came back with Suffer from Bad Religion, just a killer album. And then after this is a great album, but then they would go on a 3-album streak, just 3 perfect albums, with No Control, Against the Grain, and then this one, Generator. Hadn't listened to this in a while, so I pulled this one out. Just a fantastic album. So many killer songs on here. And then last but not least, it led to the only major label release that they had, and it pissed a lot of people off, you know, saying that punk was dead and they killed punk and they were sellouts. I have a feeling what happened is, so Brett Gurewitz from Bad Religion made a deal. He still owned the rights, or he still had a deal with the Offspring. So what and I could be wrong on this, but what I'm thinking is when he let the Offspring go, he made a deal that the Bad Religion would get a major label release too. I'm not sure that's what happened. It just kind of seems that way. Because of that, though, this album went on to be huge. It's by far their best-selling album. It's got their 2 biggest hits of all time. And oddly enough, Brett wasn't on this album. He left the band right before they started recording this. But Stranger Than Fiction from Bad Religion, which I know a lot of people hate this album. I absolutely love it. I love every song on here. But 21st Century... I do it every time. 21st Century Digital Boy is one of my favorite Bad Religion songs. So love this album. That's it, guys. Just something a little bit different. I hope everybody's doing good. Happy New Year, and I'll see you soon.